People of the media, this is a statement of the cabinet meeting that took place yesterday. Implementation of key government programs. The 40th centenary celebrations, which were officiated by President Jacob Zuma, was a success. Hundreds of guests, including alumni and the Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe, as well as diplomats, attended this prestigious milestone in South Africa's history. This also coincided with Africa Month, which commemorates the founding of the then Organization of African Unity, now the African Union. Cabinet welcomes the progress that is being made in resolving students' issues which should not have caused the destruction of property at that university. On a working visit by President Zuma to the Republic of Uganda, both heads of state agreed to strengthen bilateral relations and discuss the political and security situation in the Republic of Burundi and the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo. President Zuma also attended the inauguration ceremony of President Museveni. Our country and Uganda have so far 20 signed bilateral agreements with approximately 70 South African companies currently operating in Uganda. South African exports to Uganda amounted to 1.7 billion rand, while South African imports totaled 98 million rand. Cabinet welcomed the successful conclusion of President Zuma's state visit to the state of Qatar, with the signing of several agreements and commitments, such as the agreements on defense cooperation, police cooperation, cooperation in the arts, culture, and heritage. The establishment of a joint investment committee to oversee the implementation of agreements in addition to the structured bilateral consultations enhances as well as elevates bilateral relations at a strategic level. The President's interaction with the South Africa-Qatari Business Forum promoted business-to-business cooperation aimed at diversifying both economies. With both countries qualifying as maritime countries, the potential for cooperation in the oceans economy was also discussed. A number of South African companies, mainly in the petrochemical-related sector, operate in Qatar. One of South Africa's largest investments in the Middle East is Sasol, which plays a very important role in the development of Qatar's gas reserves. And other issues discussed include trade and economic relations, as well as global and regional peace and security matters. As we all know by now, the President handed over compensation for land as part of phase 1 of the settlement of claims on the Kruger National Park. A total of 84 million rand was awarded to 6 communities, 3 from Limpopo, 3 from Mpumalanga. In terms of this land area, this portion measured about 318,000 hectares. This settlement model took into account the significance of the Kruger National Park and assured viable financial compensations of claimants, and as claimants are not able to return to their land. This is in line with equitable redress under our government's land restitution program and marks a very important milestone in our country's transformation agenda. In further empowering these communities, a 1% community tourism fund has been generated, generating approximately 6.5 million rand per annum for community beneficiation. This has also resulted in the building of a number of educational facilities, including an administrative block at Dumisani High School, a computer laboratory at Masiza High School, a science laboratory at Tlakulani and Sibusisiwe High Schools, a kitchen facility and playground for grade R learners at Takeleni Primary School. In the 2016-17 year, in consultation with the affected communities, the building of 4 Science Laboratory in Buyani High School, Mahlale Secondary School, Lepato High School and Makuya, covering both Limpopo and Mpumalanga provinces, will be prioritized. Cabinet emphasized the importance of partnership between multi-ethnic communities, which contributes to our social cohesion. Our country's land restitution model is evolving based on prior experiences and is now underpinned by creating sustainable economic benefit rather than the troubled once-off financial transfers, which often left communities no better off. Phase 2 of the settlement claim will consist of projects that are aimed at ensuring the communities continue to benefit in the longer term from business opportunities within the Kruger Park. The outcomes from the Summit on Integration of Compensation Systems under the theme Access to Equitable, Fair and Sustainable Compensation System for All Workers, led by our Ministers of Health, Labor, supported by Deputy Ministers of Mineral Resources, Health, Labor, were received. The summit focused on occupational health and safety with a view to develop integrated compensation system for South Africa. Also, ministers from our SADC region also participated. Mining industry, as well as organized labor and ex-mine workers associations also participated at that summit. Through the envisaged integrated compensation system, our government will ensure that workers and ex-workers in mines and works receive market-related compensation benefits which provides for their sustainable welfare and that of their families. Working together with the workers' representatives and mining sector, our government aims to implement a monitoring and evaluation system that will provide incentives to companies with good safety and compensation legislation compliance. Our country's first bio-manufacturing industry development center was opened in Pretoria by the Department of Science and Technology. This center's work is part of our country's 9-point plan to unlock the potential of small, medium, and micro enterprises, the SMMEs. It supports the SMEs involved in biomanufacturing by enabling them to exploit market opportunities. Companies incubated at this center have access to ready-to-use biomanufacturing facilities, support in research and development laboratories. The initial phase will result in the creation of permanent and temporary jobs with the economic impact projected at 250 million rand per annum in the next 5 years. Currently, this program is supporting 19 enterprises, of which 16 are owned by Black entrepreneurs, including 10 Black women-owned enterprises. In addition, 55 permanent and 171 temporary jobs have already been created, with 54 interns being trained. The announcement made by the Minister of Energy to develop a gas policy will guide the country towards a sustainable natural gas economy. The introduction of gas as an additional resource of power in our country's energy mix will lessen the dependence on coal and ensure sufficient, diverse, and secure energy availability to our citizens and the economy now and into the future. This will also increase our country's trajectory of realizing a re-industrialized economy, a higher and inclusive path, and job creation. In the interim, the Department of Energy is undertaking a gas-to-power program which will deliver about 3.7 thousand megawatts of electricity and also serve as a catalyst for the development of local gas industry, which will encourage upstream exploration in an investor friendly enabling environment. Employment opportunities associated directly and indirectly with this industry development will amount to about 1.25 million full-time equivalent job opportunities over a 25-year period. In the shorter term, the gas-to-power program will contribute to buffer economic output decreases and help prevent job losses. The official rollout of the National Save Energy campaign during the 2016 Africa Utility Week conference led by the Department of Energy also builds on our government's energy savings campaign, which was launched by our president last year. Also launching is the Appliance Check campaign, an energy efficiency measure that will give consumers a choice when purchasing appliances. A label will be fixed to all appliances to indicate how they perform in relation to the minimum energy performance standard. Cabinet also noted the Africa Energy Inward Buying Mission, hosted by the Department of Trade and Industry and the South African Electrotechnical Export Council. Our companies with manufacturing and engineering service competencies were exposed to representatives of power utilities from Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, South Sudan, and Nigeria. This better position our country's companies to participate in the investment opportunities of the power infrastructure rollout for Africa, estimated at between $20 billion and $42 billion a year over the next 10 years. Cabinet is encouraged by the launch of the acid mine drainage long-term solution at the AMD Central Basin in Germiston, which would be 2/3 funded by the mining sector and 1/3 by water users. This follows the successful completion of the short-term solution under the Inter-Ministerial Committee on AMD. In 2011, government mandated the Trans-Caledon Tunnel Authority, a state-owned entity under the Department of Water and Sanitation, to provide a short-term solution to this challenge in Gauteng. The purpose of this long-term solution is to further treat the contaminated water by removing sulfates and creating water for commercial use as either industrial or potable water. Cabinet appeals to all Lesotho nationals who are residing in South Africa illegally to apply for a Lesotho special permit at a visa facilitation service center before 30 June 2016. The Lesotho special permit is issued under a special dispensation for Lesotho nationals who are working, studying, or running businesses in South Africa and have been in the country in such capacity before 30 September 2015. Furthermore, Lesotho applicants who fraudulently obtained South African documents are advised to surrender them to designated Home Affairs offices so as to obtain an amnesty letter. This amnesty will expire on the 31st of December 2016. Employers of Lesotho nationals should also take advantage of this permit. Cabinet welcomes the announcement by the Minister of Sport and Recreation that local boxing is being broadcast again on SABC. To date, boxing is back, and TKO programs on SABC have reached over 1.3 million households. The return of this sport to television will greatly benefit revenue of Boxing South Africa, will also strengthen women boxing and support upcoming promoters and boxers. Key Cabinet decisions. Cabinet was briefed on the conclusion of negotiations and legal scrubbing of the Economic Partnership Agreement between Southern African Development Community Group and the European Union. Cabinet approved that the Economic Partnership Agreement be submitted to Parliament. This agreement will establish a single trade regime between SADC, SACU, and the European Union. It will also enhance our country's preferential access to the EU market for a range of agricultural products such as sugar, ethanol, wine, fisheries, and fruit. The EPA builds on the Trade and Development Cooperation Agreement, the TDCA, that South Africa concluded in 2000 with the European Union. The Economic Partnership Agreement will provide South Africa with additional policy space in several areas. Our country also negotiated a bilateral protocol on geographic indicators with the European Union due to the growing interest in protecting wine names and specialized agricultural product names. As such, 102 wine names will be protected under this agreement, and 3 agricultural product names, namely Rooibos, Honeybush, and Karoo Lamb. The agreement ensures, in line with the National Development Plan's objectives, that our country advances industrialization and promotes South African exports into the European Union market. Most importantly, the EPA promotes the development of regional value chains in Africa, thus contributing to regional integration. Cabinet approved the publication of the Green Paper on International Migration in the Government Gazette for public comment. It was also briefed on further stakeholder consultations and engagements on the Green Paper for the 2016-17 financial year. This Green Paper is aligned to the National Development Plan and takes the position that to end poverty and create decent work, migration must be used to break these patterns by growing our skills and knowledge base and by removing barriers to regional development. This requires South Africa to invest strategically in the further development of an efficient and secure immigration system. Implementation of international migration will take us closer to achieving a balance between meeting South Africa's development needs while safeguarding our country's integrity and national security. Cabinet approved for the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries to co-host the World Aquaculture Society Conference together with the Aquaculture Association of Southern Africa from the 26th to the 30th of June 2017 in South Africa. This will be the first time that the World Aquaculture Conference is held in Africa. The aquaculture sector has been prioritized by government to play a pivotal role in food security and economic growth of the country. Aquaculture has been included, as we know, in the key initiative of Operation Phakisa Ocean's Economy, and hosting of this conference, therefore, will enable our country to fast-track development of and investment in aquaculture sector through the information and knowledge sharing as well as networking opportunities. Hosting will also create an opportunity for the tourism sector to showcase our country's tourism activities, and the local farmers will also showcase their technology innovations at the trade show that will cater for more than 100 exhibitors from leading aquaculture nations worldwide. African countries will also have an opportunity to participate and showcase their products, which will have a positive impact on economic development for the aquaculture sector in the African region and in our country. Cabinet was also briefed on the refinements made to the medium-term strategic framework, chapter on outcome 12, and the 2016-17 program of action. This responds to the Cabinet decision to strengthen alignment between the medium-term strategic framework and efficient, effective, and development-oriented public service for the period 2014 to 2019 and our National Development Plan. Upcoming events. The month of June will see the commemoration of the 40th anniversary of June 16, 1976 Students' Uprising, which profoundly changed the socio-political landscape of South Africa. The commemoration is being overseen by an interministerial committee, and the Youth Month will be launched on the 1st of June under the theme Youth Taking South Africa Forward at the Hector Peterson Memorial in Soweto. This will also see a month-long program which is coordinated by the National Youth Development Agency, the NYDA, dedicated to enabling and encouraging our youth to more easily take up opportunities across various sectors so as to better their lives and enable them to effectively contribute to the development of our economy and our country. This builds up to the National Youth Day proceedings on the 16th of June, which will be officiated by the President at Orlando Stadium in Soweto. The Department of Social Development will launch National Child Protection Week at Brakspruit Farm in Klerksdorp on the 29th of May, under the theme, Let Us All Protect Children to Move South Africa Forward. The week will also coincide with an International Children's Day event on the 1st of June, which will be led by our President at an orphanage and youth center in Atteridgeville in Pretoria, and conclude on the 5th of June in Amersfoort in Mpumalanga. Cabinet urges communities to protect our children against neglect, against abuse, violence, and exploitation by reporting all those incidences to law enforcement authorities. The Department of Environmental Affairs will lead our country in marking World Environmental Day on the 5th of June to mobilize South Africans to take positive environmental action to protect our planet. This year's World Environmental Day will go under the theme Go Wild for Life, which will focus on wildlife crime and the damage that it causes. Our country's success in conservation of our biodiversity has made the country a prime target for organized transnational environmental and wildlife crime. The impact of environmental and wildlife crime is devastating to our ecosystems, sustainable livelihoods, as well as tourism. The observance of World's Ocean Day on the 8th of June will be under the theme Healthy Oceans, Healthy Planet, will allow us to highlight the impact of oceans on our country and the various ways in which oceans contribute to our economy. It also highlights challenges in dealing with marine pollution, maintaining the ocean's capacity to regulate global climate, supplying essential ecosystem services, and providing sustainable livelihood and safer recreation. Cabinet's position on key issues in the environment. Our government remains focused on reigniting economic growth, preserving existing jobs, and creating more sustainable jobs through working together with business and labor. Through our programs of structural reforms and fiscal consolidation, our government will remain within its expenditure ceiling to ensure that our economy emerges stronger when the global economy recovers. President Zuma has led several effective interventions through partnerships, both domestic and international, to boost economic growth and job creation. Cabinet noted the growing number of investment initiatives that have been announced in the country, which demonstrate confidence by the international investment community in our country's economy. It further demonstrates that our country is on a path to recovery and continues to be a viable investment destination. The magnitude of the following investments demonstrates the continued confidence the global automotive producers have in South Africa as an investment destination and the supportive policy environment that government is providing. These include the investment by Toyota for a new Toyota Hilux and Fortuner manufacturing plant in Prospecting in Durban, which was opened by the President on Tuesday. This was made possible through the support provided by the Department of Trade and Industry, which has attracted investments of over 25 billion rand in the automotive industry in the past 5 years. This investment will support more than 4,000 jobs, with total employment in the plant already exceeding 8,000 jobs. This plant is part of Toyota's injection of 6.1 billion rand investment into South Africa's manufacturing industry and the country's local vehicle production. Toyota has increased local procurement in its supply chain to support local component suppliers, and the company has also focused on recruiting female technicians and providing more opportunities to women in the workforce. BMW's announcement on the start of a 6 billion rand construction of a new state-of-the-art body shop. This expansion will enable BMW to produce and export the next generation of BMW X3. This demonstrates also the Roslyn plant as being highly competitive within the global BMW production network, both in terms of cost of production and quality. In another investment, the Minister of Trade and Industry launched a 100 million rand Dussaults and All Joy tomato processing plant in Mojachi's Kloof near Tzaneen. This factory currently employs 70 people with a potential to increase of 300 by next year. It will also create a further 900 seasonal jobs. The company has also initiated an export structure and plans of exporting 25% of its products to the Middle East, China, and the rest of Africa. These investments showcase the steady implementation of our 9-point plan and the industrial policy action plan that focus on increasing manufacturing-based value addition, employment creation, and export intensity to grow the economy and create jobs. Despite global economic headwinds, the South African economy is poised to forge ahead. Cabinet reminds all eligible voters to responsibly exercise their democratic right on the 3rd of August. Cabinet expresses its gratitude to all those who took the time to register and verify their details to ensure that their name appears on the voters' roll, which is now closed, as we know. Minister Van Rooyen has gazetted and proclaimed the date of the local government elections, allowing for the commencement of the electoral processes in terms of the timetable. The announcement also closes the voters' roll for registration to participate in the upcoming elections. Cabinet welcomes the signing of the Electoral Code of Conduct by all political parties, pledging to abide by the rules and ensure that elections are free and fair. This demonstrates our maturing and deepening democracy. We noted the 2016 Special National Members Assembly, which was held by the South African Local Government Association, SALGA. This comes as the country gears itself for a transition into the next term of local government ahead of the 2016 municipal elections. The Assembly reflected on the progress made over the past 16 years and during this term of local government. The role of local government in the delivery of services and the restoration of human dignity was also profiled. Key challenges were also addressed and a recommitment made to the cocked up Back to Basics program. This also paves the way for the fourth democratic local government term by providing a support program for municipalities and managing the transition to ensure stability and uninterrupted service provision to the people of South Africa. Cabinet expressed concern at the disruptions in Parliament, which are increasing in frequency and intensity. Parliament is an institution of our hard-fought democracy and a public platform which must be respected by all. Cabinet commended the work of the Interministerial Committee led by the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs and the Provincial Task Team to restore normality to Vuwani, while noting that challenges continues in some parts. Government has worked tirelessly, engaging communities in a bid to resolve issues and bringing services, including education, back into operation. The provision of temporary classroom has ensured the resumption of academic activities. Government again calls on communities and leaders to raise issues through channels and platforms which have been established to enable dialogue. This unprecedented action of holding the education of our children hostage is totally unacceptable. Cabinet commends law enforcement agencies for the work done, which resulted in the arrest of 34 individuals who are suspected for participation in the destruction of 28 schools, who in fact shattered the future of those young people who are still utilizing these much needed facilities. Cabinet commends those communities and civil society organizations who rolled up their sleeves to clean up and raise funds to reopen local schools. All parents, guardians, and community members are requested to assist our children to catch up with the scheduled work plan of the Department of Basic Education. The IMC will continue to engage with stakeholders and communities to ensure that the entire area is calm and returns to normality. We also deliberated on the protest in Hammanskraal and indicated the Department of Human Settlements is leading an intervention in the area together with the Gauteng Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs MEC, Mashatile, and the Executive Mayor, Ramahupa, as we heard in the news yesterday. The Cabinet regrets the death of 2 contractors involved in the Hammanskraal removals and expresses its sympathy with the families of the bereaved. Law enforcement agencies should redouble their efforts to find the killers and bring them to justice. Cabinet congratulated the South African Broadcasting Corporation, the SABC's decision to play 90% local music across all radio stations so as to promote our homegrown content. This decision reflects our government's broadcasting policy, which encourages the safeguarding, enrichment, and strengthening of the cultural and social fabric of South African society. This exposure is also motivating to all upcoming talent. Cabinet encourages all citizens to support our local music industry, which will make a significant contribution to our economy and preserve our country's diverse cultures. Cabinet noted the investigation of 9 foreign fishing vessels by the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries and commends the combined operation involving the South African Navy, the Department of Fisheries and the South African Maritime Safety Authority, which resulted in 4 of the vessels being arrested. The capturing of these vessels indicates our seriousness as a country to protect our territorial and exclusive economic zone. Our marine resources are a source of food security and play a huge role in realizing our goals in Operation Phakisa and must be protected. Cabinet welcomed the release of the report of the Ministerial Task Team appointed by Minister Motshekga to investigate the allegations into selling of posts of educators by members of the teachers' unions and departmental officials in provincial education departments. Cabinet also congratulated South African recipients, entrepreneur Luvuyo Rani and the Clothing Bank, who were among the winners of the 2016 Social Entrepreneurs Awards by the Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship, which was presented at the fringes of the World Economic Forum in Kigali, Rwanda. Cabinet salutes and extends its good wishes to former Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke, who retired from the bench after joining the Constitutional Court in 2002. The former Deputy Chief Justice is a highly regarded jurist and a respected veteran of the country's liberation struggle. In his younger days, Moseneke was involved in the liberation struggle as a member of the Pan-Africanist Congress. He was tried and convicted for his political activities. At the age of 15, became the youngest prisoner to be incarcerated on Robben Island. He was also part of the technical committee, as we know, that drafted the interim constitution in 1993 and was later appointed deputy chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission ahead of South Africa's first democratic elections. Cabinet also pays tribute to Supreme Court of Appeal President Judge Lex Mpati, who retires from the bench in May after 27 years of illustrious service to South Africa. Judge Mpati personifies the values of rising above self, of modesty, commitment, excellence, and ethical behavior. Cabinet also congratulates and extends its best wishes to Justice Nkabinde as acting Deputy Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court until the position is filled. Appointments, as we know, are subject to verification of qualifications and relevant clearance. Office of the Public Service Commission. Dr. D.C. Mampiswana has been appointed Director General in the Office of the Public Service Commission. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We'll hand out the document and we'll start with questions immediately. We will start in Cape Town For the first round, I see hands. Okay, Paul first, SABC and Linda. Anybody else for this round? No. Okay. Paul, kick off, please. Thanks.
Good morning, Minister. Paul Vicchiato from Bloomberg. The three ministers, Minister of Finance, Labour and Mineral Resources, were tasked by Cabinet to meet with the banks over the Gupta accounts. The Minister of Labour indicated that a report would be submitted to Cabinet, and that at this briefing, from what I understood, we would be told what the result of that report was. Has that report been submitted? Have the ministers met with the banks? And could you tell us, if so, could you tell us anything about it, please?
Who did I say was two? Linda.
Good morning, Minister. Linda Ensor, Business Day. The credit rating agency is due to, I think it's Standard & Poor's, due to issue their rating next week, I think Friday. Did Cabinet discuss this? Does it have any view on South Africa's prospects? And, yeah, thank you.
Okay, I do see your hand. Manalise, you first.
No, I was going to ask the same question, Paul.
No problem. Gay, you can take his.
Thanks. Morning, Minister. I wondered whether Cabinet discussed the incident involving the Defence Minister, Nozivira Mapisa-Nqakula, who appears to have smuggled somebody into the country on a on an Air Force jet. Given the stance of South Africa and the Minister of Home Affairs, Malusi Gigaba, in terms of the efforts there to stop child trafficking, was this discussed? Is there any action to be taken in this regard? Thank you.
You want that hand. Okay, Manalise.
Okay. Minister, you've spoken quite a lot about economic growth and economic development, things that were discussed in the cabinet. But can I ask you, does the cabinet support Minister Pravin Gordhan's effort of austerity measures, given the fact that there are some cabinet ministers who seem to be still spending like there's no tomorrow on luxury things, like cars, travel, and so on. Does the cabinet support these austerity measures? And if so, what measures is it doing to rein in those ministers who continue to spend?
Thank you. Minister, over to you.
On the first question, the three ministers have not yet reported to Cabinet. On the issue of credit rating agencies, as you know, since the beginning of the year, the President tasked Minister of Finance and Jabu Mabuza to lead a team that will ensure that Team SA, we sing from the same hymn book of ensuring that we do not get the downgrade. And I think the road shows that they made to the United States in London, the initiative by the President to meet with business leaders and labor, all these measures are aimed at ensuring that we preserve our credit rating. And I think we've seen it in the past 2 weeks with Moody's, even though they gave us a negative outlook, but they did not bring us down. So as we all know, S&P and Fitch are in the country. They've already met with several cabinet colleagues, and I'm sure all of us need to be very optimistic about the future of South Africa. As I've indicated in this post-cabinet briefing, there are many things that are happening in spite of this gloomy global economy. There are sectors where we are very positive as government, positive as a country. So I think there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We did not discuss the issue of the Minister of Defense and military veterans. I've already answered the question that our focus is on the reforms to ensure that we stay the course of fiscal consolidation And all those austerity measures, in fact, those are cabinet decisions. As you will recall, at the State of the Nation address, the President announced that these measures are going to be effected. So all of us are behind the austerity measures. So I'm not aware of ministers who are spending as if there is no tomorrow. So maybe if you can provide me with the information, but I doubt that there's any cabinet colleague who's spending as if there is no tomorrow. As we have seen, with the lead by the President on the State of the Nation address, there was no banquet. So many of us have followed suit.
Thank you, Minister. Next round, we will start in Pretoria and then we'll close the round in Cape Town. Pretoria, over to you. Any questions?
Thanks, Lisa. There's no question at this point.
Okay, back to Parliament. Paul, your hand was up again, but I'll give a new hand. Bianca, Paul. Oh, okay. We'll take all the hands that I see here right now. It's 5 hands. Thank you.
Good morning, Minister. Bianca Caposorio from the Sunday Times. I asked the Minister of Police the same question, but he didn't get around to answering it the other day. Was Cabinet, either yesterday or in previous Cabinet meetings, briefed at all regarding the investigation of the Hawks and Pravin Gordhan, please?
Paul, your number 2.
Hi, Minister. Paul again. So in paragraph 2.1 on page 5, I just don't understand the sentence. It says, Cabinet was briefed on the conclusion of negotiations and legal scrubbing of the economic partnership. What do you mean by legal scrubbing? If you can just explain that, please. And then on the asset mine drainage story on paragraph 1.11, can you tell us how much water has been treated by the Trans-Caledon Tunnel Authority, and if at what cost, and if this water is usable at all? Thank you.
Joseph.
Minister Joseph Musia from SABC. On the question of Vuani and other hotspots around the country, yesterday in the briefing to the committee, the police senior management seemed to suggest that they are overstretched in terms of resources because of the number of incidents. We're going towards an election now. Has Cabinet been looking at these protests and university destruction and all this, and as to how policing is going to be done around them going towards these elections? And as a follow-up, would you be able to say why the issue of the Minister of Defense was not discussed?
I see there was an extra hand, but is there any follow-up in this round of questions? I can split the 2 rounds up. No? New topics? Okay, last new topic, and then we're going to have to do another round. Dennis. On mic, Dennis.
Oh, sorry, Dennis Krevach, New Age. I just wanted to know the retirement of Mr. Moseneke. There was a time when he was criticized for saying his loyalty was to the Constitution and not to any particular party. If you recall that, do you have any suggestions on that, where we should go on where loyalty is?
I don't understand the question.
No, he was criticized because he said his loyalty was to the Constitution and upholding the Constitution and not any political party, and he was, as I said, criticized. I was wondering if that view still holds.
Okay, we'll end with, Linda, we'll take you in the next round. Yes, but too much questions for one round. Okay. Minister.
We have never discussed the issue of the arrest or not arrest of anybody in Cabinet. But what was discussed earlier on was these public statements on all sides, where Cabinet and the President indicated that these matters should not be ventilated in public. There are appropriate forums to deal with them. So that's the context. On the issue of illegal scrubbing, things like a technical sexy term that these people use. So we can give you more context on that offline. On the issue of acid drainage, I don't have the figures with me, but in the press conference by the Minister of Water and Sanitation about a week ago, he elaborated in more detail even the kinds of investments that are going to be done together with the mining sector in order to deal with this sketch. On the issue of protests, it is a concern, I think we should be upfront, that some of these matters can never be resolved by law enforcement only. That is why it is the responsibility of all of us as citizens to put our shoulder to the wheel to deal with these matters. Who can destroy the future of their children? So some of these people think frankly, the issue of demarcation there, what has it to do with the future of our children? So those people who did these things, I'm sure they are known by communities. So it is the responsibility of community members who know the neighbors who have done that, maybe their own family members. So I think we need to have courage as South Africans to rise up to this culture that is unbecoming at this present moment in time. That is why the police will be as good as the information they get from all of us as individuals, as members of communities. I've already answered that question that we did not discuss the issue that was reported in the Sunday Times. I did not understand the question from New Age. My understanding is that the position is very clear, that judges in their oath of office, they abide by the Constitution, which they must apply without fear, favor, or prejudice. So I think that is normal.
Thank you, Minister. Linda, do you want to kick off the...
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Minister, wouldn't it be fitting for the President to publicly express confidence in his Finance Minister in the context of rumours, allegations, threats, insinuations? His silence on the matter was very telling, and I don't know whether you can comment on that. Thank you.
Andisiwe?
Andisiwe Makinana from City Press. Minister, you said the three ministers were tasked with meeting their banks have not reported back to Cabinet. Do we know why? Because in the last briefing, Minister Mapisa Ngagula, she definitely said in the next Cabinet briefing we will be told about what went down in those meetings. So what happened? Why didn't they report back? And I also want to find out, I mean, you talk about the seriousness of the foreign vessels that were captured in our seas, but the question is, how isn't Cabinet concerned that you had 9 foreign vessels, entering our oceans and doing whatever they did? Where was the intelligence? A lot of questions arise from the whole thing and the way it happened, and we only reacted after they were here. So.
ENCA?
ENCA Minister, you talk about here, when it comes to Vuwani, Hammanskraal, platforms that have been opened for dialogue. And one of the issues the members of the committee have been saying is that they can't seem to get hold of their councillors, they can't seem to get through government. So when you talk about these platforms, what are these platforms you talk about when you're saying that you have to open the channels for the community and the fears of government to speak of? And number 2, when you're looking in Parliament and the intensity and increasing violence when it comes to the throwing out of MPs, also saying that Cabinet is worried about that, but is there there any commitment to try to figure out a way of solving them without spilling out of being thrown out? Is there a way of Cabinet or Parliament is looking at that to make sure that they don't get to that point? Thank you.
Okay, before I take additional hands, I just want to check with Pretoria. Pretoria, are you ready to take a question or give a question?
There's still no question.
Okay, so we'll continue in Cape Town.
Yes.
Okay, I'll take for this round Manalise and then Joseph again in the next round.
Minister, you have been so kind to us, and I think really we need to reciprocate, when you ask us something. You ask me to furnish you with the ministers who spend like there's no tomorrow. And I think it will be fair that I do so. I mean, you should have seen newspapers yesterday where the Minister of Police apparently spent about 9 million rand on luxury cars. I mean, I thought that the cabinet would say, Mr. Ntleko, please put your brakes. We're in a bad times. But another question I wanted to ask Minister, was the cabinet briefed by Minister Ramatlhodi and Minister Pravin Gordhan about the letter from the former Directors General? Did they brief the cabinet about its content, and did the cabinet consider that and maybe try to reflect on the issues they raised on that letter, because they confirmed that they received it? Thank you.
Joseph.
Minister, on the issue of Hammanskraal, apparently after the intervention of the MEC yesterday, the people were allowed to stay on the piece of land that was in dispute. What message does it send? 2 people were killed by those resisting this removal. It is becoming apparent that this violence is continuing. What does it mean? Does it mean that people should resort to violence, and because it works? Because it worked in the case of this particular community. Because they were violent and they resisted violently, and now they are able to stay there. Is that the message government wants to send to people who protest violently? And then on the issue of the Lesotho, the special letter for what does this special letter entail? I just want to understand what do people, once you've achieved the amnesty letter for Basotho, I'm not too sure what once you get that amnesty, what does it mean for you?
Okay, that's it for this. Guy, did you want to pop? Okay.
Thanks, Minister. Just on the Lesotho issue as well, how many people are affected, do we think? And then on the Parliament issue and the debate on how to restore the image of the National Assembly in the House this week, there was quite a lot of points made by a spectrum of opposition parties who were essentially saying that it's the conduct of the Speaker and of the President in terms of the Constitutional Court judgment that found against them and the failure to actually take any action in response to that is the underlying cause of the disruptions that we're seeing and their intensification. I just wondered whether you could comment on that. Thanks.
That's it. Minister, over to you.
I'm answering for the last time because I have to attend the last ANC caucus this morning. Otherwise, my chief whip will. No, before the local government election. Many questions today, yeah? Well, I think I'm sure at an appropriate time the President will make his views known. But as I've indicated, we are a collective cabinet, so sometimes what I read in the papers is not in conformity with what I know happens in government. The second question, I did not understand what you meant by that, because the mere fact that we've arrested 4 vessels is an indication and a demonstration that our law enforcement on the seas is working. The collaboration between the South African Navy, the Maritime Safety Authority on the seas, is the one that has brought about the arrest of those 4 ships. Our only disappointment is the sentence meted out to one of them who were fined about a meager 74,000 rand. But that's neither here nor there. But what is important is that we are increasing our capacity to patrol our oceans, especially now that the oceans economy, as we know, the huge potential that can be unleashed if we can be able to ensure that we take care of our oceans. So I'm sure even those people who want to illegally fish on our waters, the message is out there that they can try to hide, but we are going to catch them. I think on the issue of councillors, I think it's a perennial problem that happens in many communities. Councillors are elected to serve their communities. If they did not report back to their communities, it is the right of those communities to remove those councillors. I think there's no 2 ways about it. On the issue of Parliament, I don't think I want to deal much on that because we have taken a decision that the leader of government business is going to be addressing this matter when Parliament rises. There's going to be a major media statement where the leader of government business on behalf of Cabinet will be reflecting on what has happened in the last term of parliamentary session. On the issue of the Minister of Police, my understanding was that these were not his cars. I thought your initial question was that ministers are spending in their cars. So these are not his cars, as I read his reply to a question in Parliament. We did not discuss the letters of the former DGs, so maybe you can ask Minister of Finance and the Minister of Public Service and Administration. On the issue of Hammanskraal, no matter how deep-seated the problem is, there is no grievance that can give rise to the loss of lives. That is why we are unrelenting in our view that law enforcement must take its course. Those who killed those 2 contractors must be brought to book. And it also comes back to the earlier response I made. Members of communities should not be party to the breaking of the law. On the issue of Lesotho, this is a special dispensation that those who have illegal documents, they need to have a clean breast so that they get this amnesty. So the window is until the end of this month to come forward, and the door will be shut on the 31st of December this year. I've already responded on the issue of Parliament. As I said, the leader of government business will be addressing this matter in specific terms. So I'm sorry I have to go to my ANC caucus.
You're not sorry at all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The briefing is closed.